What's the big deal when it comes to plants and animals getting super cold? Well, the problem isn't necessarily the cold itself, but what happens to the water inside our bodies as a result of the cold. As the temperature falls below freezing, small ice crystals begin to form inside the cells of plants and animals. As these ice crystals grow, they draw water out of the surrounding cells, which destroys their structure and kills the cells. If you've ever left a bottle of juice in the freezer for too long, you'll know all too well what happens when the water expands as it freezes. You open the freezer door, looking forward to a really cold drink, but what you're faced with is the remains of a bottle and a horrible, cold, sticky mess to clean up. This is also the same reason why foods like berries turn to mush after being left to thaw out. It's because their cells have burst when they were frozen. However, many organisms have now been found to contain a group of unique molecules that scientists call antifreeze proteins, or AFPs for short, which have the ability to stop this damage. These AFPs are capable of lowering the freezing point of a solution, which keeps the ice crystals very small or prevents their formation altogether. Fish that live in the North or South Poles are a fantastic example of this. They live in temperatures of around -2 degrees Celsius all of their lives, and it's the AFPs in their blood that means the water in their bodies has a lower freezing point than the surrounding seawater, which enables them to survive icy temperatures that would kill most fish. So let's just step back a moment and think about what normally happens when water freezes. When water gets colder, it becomes denser until it reaches about 4 degrees Celsius. When water eventually turns into ice, it gets lighter and less dense. This is why ice floats on top of water. It also, as we mentioned before, expands, and it's this expansion which can cause materials to crack and rupture. If you've ever suffered from a burst pipe in the winter, you'll know all about this. It can be damaging to plant and animal cells too. The expansion of the water as it freezes can cause them to burst. But species that have antifreeze proteins can avoid this through a mechanism called adsorption inhibition. Now, what we think happens in very simple terms is that when these antifreeze molecules bind to an ice crystal, they divide the growth faces of the ice crystal into regions with curved faces. The water molecules can't easily bond to others, and so they remain as a liquid rather than being converted into solid ice. So the only way to get the water molecules to stay in these curved regions is to lower the temperature, which is the same as lowering the freezing point. It's not just polar fish that possess this sub-zero superpower. A whole host of plants and animals have also developed strategies to survive freezing conditions. But let's stick with our fishy friends for now. Take the Atlantic and Arctic cod species, as well as the Antarctic notothynioids. They live in seas that are really cold and really salty, and it's this combination of cold and salt that makes these seas quite a difficult place to live, to say the least. But there's something even weirder here. We have freezing cold seawater that isn't frozen. You see, when salt is dissolved in water, it lowers its freezing point. For seawater, its freezing point drops to -1.9 degrees Celsius. So you'd think that this very cold seawater, which is a liquid, should instantly freeze the less salty water inside a fish's body, but it doesn't. So, how do the fish get around this? Well, it was a physiologist called Arthur de Vries who revealed that it was the action of sugary proteins called glycoproteins attaching themselves to ice crystals in the blood of Antarctic fish that was preventing the crystals from growing. This, combined with the naturally occurring body salts, meant the notothynioid fish he was studying were able to maintain a blood temperature of -2.5 degrees Celsius without freezing. Since the discovery of AFPs in the 1960s, there's been a lot of interest in their economic potential. One fascinating discovery is that the same antifreeze proteins that keep organisms from freezing in cold environments can, on the flip side, prevent ice from melting at warmer temperatures. A consumer goods company called Unilever caught onto this discovery and now uses ice structuring proteins, or ISPs, in some of their ice cream products. These ISPs work in a similar way to the AFPs found in our Antarctic fish, but rather than using fish stocks, they can be produced using genetically modified baker's yeast. The yeast contains a gene from a fish called the ocean pout, which is found in the northwest Atlantic Ocean and has antifreeze proteins in its blood. The result is an ice cream which maintains its shape for longer and melts much slower than normal as temperatures increase. If this seems like a rather niche use, it's worth noting that by 2024, the global ice cream market is projected to be worth an estimated, drumroll please, $74 billion US. But it's not just ice cream that antifreeze proteins can be used for. For many airlines, keeping their aircraft frost-free in cold conditions is a major challenge. Any delays due to ice on either passenger or freight planes incurs a cost, as well as the risk of potential damage to the plane. The longer the delay, the more expensive it becomes. In Germany, the Fraunhofer Institute for Manufacturing Technology and Advanced Materials is currently working on a variety of strategies for minimizing ice formation, including an anti-icing coating based on antifreeze proteins. These proteins would protect the surface of the plane from icing over and keep the planes moving, which has got to be good news for passengers and the airlines. And then there are power lines. Not only can the weight of ice bring the cables down, but it can also act as an insulator. The ice causes the wires to heat up, which means energy transmission becomes less efficient. Treating electric power lines and pylons with AFP coatings could potentially save utility companies millions of dollars in maintenance and repair costs alone, as well as improving energy efficiency. But perhaps the most exciting technology that's being developed is within the health sector, where AFPs could have a critical role in preserving organs and tissues destined for transplant. With more than 6,000 people waiting for a transplant in the UK alone, the possibility of transporting organs further afield or even storing organs for longer periods of time would be hugely beneficial. And one of the reasons why this might be possible is because scientists are now able to produce synthetic AFPs, and it's all thanks to snowfleas. If you're enjoying this video, make sure you hit that like button. Liking the video does wonders for the channel and helps to spread this video to more people just like you. And if you're a fan of nature-inspired solutions and success stories like this one, 30 Animals That Made Us Smarter, the book, might just be for you. Check out the link in the description to order your copy now. All right, let's get back to the episode. You see, as I mentioned, it's not just some fish which have AFPs. So do snowfleas. Snowfleas aren't fleas at all, but in fact belong to a primitive group of organisms called springtails. Closely related to insects, they are wingless, have 6 legs, and move about by walking or jumping. Instead of using their legs to jump, they catapult themselves into the air by releasing a spring-like mechanism called a furcula, a sort of flap that folds under the abdomen until it's needed. When the furcula is released, the snowflea is launched several centimeters into the air, which is mighty impressive, especially when you consider that the snowflea is less than 2 millimeters in length. That's the equivalent of a human jumping over the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Not bad, right? Snowfleas live amongst the soil and leaf litter and feed on decaying vegetation and other organic matter. As their name suggests, they can survive in sub-zero temperatures. Professor Laurie Graham from Queen's University in Canada first noticed them whilst cross-country skiing and collected several to take back to her lab. It turns out that the snowflea is protected from freezing by antifreeze proteins that are rich in an amino acid, a building block of proteins, called glycine. Just like the cod we heard about earlier, this binds to ice crystals and prevents them from growing larger, so the snowflea's cells don't freeze. By isolating the protein, the scientists were able to study its structure more closely and develop artificially synthesized AFPs. So, How could these synthetic snowflake antifreeze proteins be helpful in organ transplants? Well, one of the challenges with organ transplants is that you want to keep the organs really cold, but not frozen. AFPs would allow the organs to be stored at lower temperatures without freezing them, and this extends the organ's shelf life between removal and transplant. In a race against time, this could make all the difference when it comes to saving a person's life. And that's just the first benefit, because then these AFPs which lose their structure at higher temperatures would degrade naturally when they reached body temperature and quickly be cleared from the patient's system, reducing the possibility of any side effects. Now you might think our story ends there, but I'd like to leave you with a final thought. The research into antifreeze proteins is in its infancy, but there would appear to be a wide range of potential applications. We can only really advance and develop synthetic or chemically produced AFPs if we have organisms living and thriving in what are often to us remote, hostile and very cold areas. What we don't know is how climate change might affect many of these species that benefit from AFPs, and how environmental change may affect our development of this important technology. It's a cautionary warning that whilst we may want to explore the biodiversity of our planet, we also need to protect these natural resources.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and head to the comment section to share the ingenious ideas that you've come across too. For our offers and much more, head to the episode description below. And if you're looking for more great content, then check out this next video. Thanks for watching.